All right. So, for today's best practice webinar, we are going to be talking about all things live learning. I'm really excited about this one. I was having conversations with the customer support team, and we seem to get a lot of questions about live learning. So, I'm hoping that today we can alleviate some pain points that you're currently experiencing, and we'll just be able to kind of go ahead and go through all the Q&A as well. So this is designed to be an entire live learning playbook. We have the next 45 minutes ahead of us. I do want to go over some of the agenda though. For those of you who I haven't met, my name is Jenny and I'm running these Sprout webinars for Acorn. Here's my email. I will put this email on the screen again as we start to collect additional feedback. Like I said, just a couple of housekeeping items, some really exciting updates coming over to you from Sprout. We're primarily going to be focusing on creating events and sessions in regards to live learning. We're going to be talking about managing it once you've created it, once the session has ended, and then what a workflow dashboard looks like. Just a kind of quick tip. I really wanted to cover the session workflow dashboard because I don't see that utilized as much, but we do get a lot of questions about it. So hopefully we can kind of help you step up your live learning game. And then of course, we've got some Q&A as well. And then I'll also go over what's next with Sprout. We've got some really exciting webinars coming in for March. So as I mentioned, just a couple of housekeeping items. We are using Microsoft Teams here. Full disclosure, it's not something that I use very often. So thank you so much for your patience with me. As I mentioned today, I am a solo host, so we will not have anybody monitoring the comments section. So please, if you do have a question you want me to address on today's webinar, I ask that you put it in the Q&A section so I can take a look at that. Of course, we will take some designated time at the end of the webinar to address all those Q&As. Now, I actually had a lot of questions about where these webinars are going to be hosted. Some people sign up, but they can't join them last minute. And I just kind of wanted to show you our YouTube page. So Acorn PLMS, we have a YouTube page and all of the webinars are going to be hosted here. You can see that we've got the first two. If you missed the best practice webinar about clean data and the last one that we hosted on 3 real life customer use cases, you can always find them here. However, if you are a customer, I do encourage you to log into the Sprout Academy and access the content here instead. Now, if you are not already a Sprout Academy user, just head to sprout.acornplms.com and then go ahead and hit register at the bottom of the page. You'll be able to get an account. You will be signed up for some onboarding courses. That's just the name of the game with the workflows that we have here. But as you can see, as I filter through the webinars category, this is brand new. We've got 2 of our webinars, and what we're doing out of these webinars is we're turning them into courses. So I want to give you a quick example of that one. For those of you who turned into the Goals to Growth Clean Data Clear Direction webinar, we've turned it into a SCORM file. And if you found that it was valuable for yourself and for other members who might be a part of your organization, I recommend that you encourage them to sign up for this. Now, what that course looks like once they are enrolled is, of course, to get the webinar recording as well. But you also get this nifty little SCORM file where you can go through, take some of the knowledge questions, and actually get certified for this course. So we are also turning this live learning course into one as well, into a SCORM file that will be uploaded as soon as this webinar is edited and done. Last but not least, I do want to direct you to our events page here. If you just head to acorn.works and then pop in to, I believe it is resources, we've got an events page, and this is where you can sign up for our March webinars. We've got a really exciting Acorn in Action March webinar. I'm going to be talking about our quarterly roadmap. So you're going to get a sneak peek and a live demo at all the new features that are coming up next. We had a heavy lift on some UI UX edits as well that I want to show you. And then capabilities. Our very, very, very common question is, can we get some resources on capabilities on the 25th of March for North American, I believe 6th of March for APAC. You are going to be able to sign up for an entire capabilities demo. We've done a major uplift to our capabilities. I'm going to talk about how we're using it at Acorn as well and how you could be doing it for your organization. So super exciting on that front. All right. Last but not least, I do want to go over some feedback. I've had some really, really great feedback from some of our customer success team members here at Acorn. And as you can see here, I've applied one of the feedbacks was making the mouse a little bit larger so everyone can see what I'm clicking on more clearly. But please, if you have feedback on the webinars, or even if you have any advice that you want to give me, or even just saying, hey, Jenny, I would really like for you to focus on this. This is an initiative I have upcoming in my workplace, and I want to, see a webinar on that before we implement it in your organization. Give me an email, and then we can add that to the calendar. All right, let's get into live learning at Acorn. So let me just go ahead and pop back to my screen here. But the entire point of today's webinar is to go over all of the ins and the outs of live learning. Now, as always, I will be working off of my demo account here. And first and foremost, I'm just going to show you how to set up a live learning. Now, most of you should already know this. And if you don't, it's going to be a lovely little refresher. And then I'll get into some of the new stuff that we're doing with live learnings, as well as kind of comprehensively putting it all towards your learners. So as always, we know how to create a live learning by accessing our admin dashboard here, just clicking on live learning management. I will go through these items, but first I want to just go over the options for creating a live learning first. If you are a content creator or somebody who creates courses and content in Acorn, you're already going to be very familiar with the screen. So I won't spend too much time on it. Again, this is a best practice webinar. So we're going to be going over how you should be using it, and why, and not necessarily just telling you where to click. But as always, this is where you can lock the tenancy access. This is where you're creating your live learning shell. Now, just as a reminder, the shell is the overarching live learning, right? So if you've got, let's say, an onboarding course or an onboarding live learning, you might have specific events. Maybe you're going to have somebody from HR cover that, and then you're going to have somebody from facilities cover their section. You're going to have somebody from IT cover that section. This is not where your name should be. The name should just be the overarching category. Speaking of categories and tags, this is where you're going to be able to access the items here. Again, as we have all of the courses, you can have one category, but multiple tags. So facilitating that correctly. Here we can also add capabilities to it, and as well as the cost and the duration. I always like adding in the duration. It just gives the end user an idea of how long they're signing up for and the commitment. So you're not getting people who think that it's going to be a 30-minute session and then takes their whole day, and vice versa, so that they can plan accordingly. Always encourage you to pop in a live learning description. You cannot move on without it. And then also we've got our certificate of completion here that you can go ahead and enable. Now, you can turn this on for hidden if you want to. It will only be visible for users who are registered for that specific session. I always encourage you, as best practice, to turn on that hidden toggle, just because then it's going to allow you some time to work on it without actually appearing on your catalog. And it just kind of lives like a draft version. So I always like to suggest that. Start and end date. As you all know, this is the start date that it appears on your catalog, not necessarily when the actual event or live learning sessions start. And the end date is when it disappears from your catalog. So always remember, when you are editing a course or a live learning shell, these start and end dates are for catalog and visibility purposes. And then here you can add in any prerequisites that are necessary, lock to cohorts, and then add a lovely little image. All right, moving on to the next couple of tabs below live learning here. I'll quickly go over some integrations. We get a lot of questions about what we integrate with when you are doing a face-to-screen session. Now, I've got Microsoft Teams as well as Zoom enabled, but of course, if you are a GoToWebinar or an Adobe Connect user, you can go ahead and do that as well. Just go ahead and navigate over to the integrations dashboard, click down the arrow, and then if your integration is not already turned on, please reach out to your Acorn support rep and they will get the secret tokens in for you. And then you will then be able to create your individual integrations here. On the flip side, if you are going to be hosting a live learning and it's going to be at a specific venue in person, this is where you're going to be able to pop in the live learning locations. Here, I've got a couple for North America as, well as Canada. Oh, sorry, I thought I saw Australia there. North America, but this is where you can create your individual venues. Now, if this is an open venue, this means that the venue is going to be open across all tenancies. However, if you're just locking this to one specific tenancy, you can go ahead and turn it off, and then allowing double bookings or not. So really helpful if your venue is a specific conference room maybe that somebody's showing on and you don't want to add double bookings to it. We can go ahead and toggle that in as well. And then don't forget, you can lock in the capacity of the venue. More to come on that. And then I just wanted to take a quick note. I'm not forgetting about this session workflow dashboard here. I will adjust that kind of at the end of the kind of live learning tutorial that I've got going on. All right, I don't know about you, but I like a clean workspace. So let's go ahead and clear off all of my tabs and really just focus on one of the live learning examples that we currently have. For this specific example, I'm going to be working off of an existing live learning. Here we've got past events and we've got current sessions that haven't happened yet, just to show you the ins and outs of it. However, if you followed my instructions in the previous screen on creating a shell, this is what it's going to look like. We can see we've got the description, we've got the details here, we've assigned capabilities to it, as well as CPD points. We've got a nice little image and it just looks nice and clean. When you create a live learning session, it's going to be blank. And what we have to do is we have to populate that with events as well as sessions. And we do that by clicking on the cogwheel and start editing. And you're going to see here this create event button. As I previously mentioned, maybe this is going to be an onboarding live learning. You're going to have a bunch of experts from multiple different areas, right? You're going to have somebody come in from HR. You're going to have somebody come in from your facilities. You're going to have somebody come in from data and IT. Those would be individual events that we have. Underneath those events is where we actually nest our specific sessions. So sessions are the actual start end date with a specific time that the users and the learners are going to be tuning into. So for example, what we have is a management training. We've got 4 different events that happen: leadership and leadership and team motivation, communication, conflict resolution, and then time project management. You can see here that all of these are required. So when you are enrolled into this live learning, you have to go to every single event in order to receive a completion and the certificate for that as well. And then in that, we've got our additional sessions. This is really helpful because you may have sessions, multiple sessions across one event, and the individual learner is only expected to attend the one. So this just kind of opens up time. Maybe you have an in-person leadership and team motivation event, and everybody who can make that is expected to show up in office. But for those who are working remotely, they are then going to be tuning into the Microsoft Teams ones. This is where you can kind of track your attendance, and this is why we're getting you to create a session nested within an event. As a quick reminder, everybody is able to enroll into all of the events that we can have in the live learning, but they can only sign up to one session within that event. So what that means is under leadership and team motivation, I'm showing all of the individual past sessions that we currently have. So let's say we've got all of these, we've got a couple of Microsoft Teams options, we've got other face-to-screen options and face-to-face in-person sessions for this specific event. A user is only able to sign up to one. So keep that in mind. A lot of customers will create an individual event, and what they actually do wrong is that event will be called the same thing. So it'll be like a management training, live learning, management training event. They'll create a bunch of individual sessions for different times and dates that they're expected to show up to. And then they run into the problem that the learner can only enroll into one session. That's when you need to break it up into different events so that you can hit all of those items at different times and receive your completion from there. Now, please, if that was a little bit confusing, I was kind of confused myself, so definitely pop in some Q&A and I can reiterate that. But now that we understand kind of the difference between events and sessions, I do also want to note that you are able to nest little activities under individual events. So if you tuned into my webinar from last couple of weeks, I talked about how you can add individual activities so that your learners have resources and handouts, as well as the option to sign off on whether or not they agree with something in the specific live learning. This is where we can add in the activities. It's very similar to how we add activities into courses. How you do so is go ahead and just click on Create Activity. And as a brief example, I will just say maybe there's a resource that they can show. In my last webinar, I showcased a fire evacuation resource, and it was just a blueprint of the building. And maybe they have to click on it in order for the event to be completed. So you're basically telling the user you have to click on this specific activity. You can also say that it's required for event registration. So a lot of users will say, well, I actually want them to read XYZ resources or complete certain activities before they're allowed to show up to the actual in-person or face-to-screen event. You can turn this on as well. It's kind of like a prerequisite. And then we've got other activity-specific prerequisites here. So whether or not you've got different activities that can be accessed before the other, as well as the registration status prereq. So prevent access until the user is actually registered into the specific session, or prevent access until the user is marked attended, which means they can only unlock this activity once the session has been created and is finished and the user actually showed up for it. Okie dokie. So like I said here, if you have created your previous sessions and you want to pop into them and view any of the history, don't forget to click on this little toggle, show past sessions, and click apply. And this is where you're going to see it. And if you want to take a history, or take a look at the history of a previous session, and this is where you can click on it. Actually, though, before I do that, I think it'd be helpful to show you what creating a session actually entails. Let's go ahead and do that first. Now, when you create a session, you're going to be met with a couple of the different options here: face-to-face, face-to-screen, and then we've got external and MS Teams here. These are the integrations that I have. Now, face-to-face and face-to-screen is the default. It kind of changes the different parameters that you have when you're creating these individual sessions. For example, if you have face-to-face turned on, you're going to be expected to create and put in a drop-down of the venue that the user is showing up for. But if it's a face-to-screen, this just means, the venue kind of disappears here and you're just selecting the time zone and the date and time. I don't usually recommend face to screen only because this is kind of a default where you're going into whatever item you're hosting it on, whether it be Microsoft Teams or Zoom, and then pasting that Teams and Zoom meeting in the details here instead. This is usually for people who don't have an integration set up. What I always recommend is if you have that integration, do what I just did at the very beginning, which was lock in your integration with Teams or GoToWebinar or Zoom, and it would actually show up here. Hopefully that makes sense. And then, so what you're going to be met with is a couple of different options. I will show you face-to-face just because we've got additional parameters. This is where you're going to be able to select the existing venue or whether there's a new venue being created. I'll just go ahead and select existing and then pop into the Vancouver address that we previously had. This is where you select your date and time. You can also select another date if you need. And remember, the email reservation is only available for sessions with only one date and time. And then this is where you're going to be putting in instructors. You can add an instructor here. You can always click on these buttons, but the difference between instructor and external instructor are people who actually have an account within your Acorn platform. So if you click on add instructors, I'm going to run a report of all of my users here, and I can click whoever is actually instructing this session, or I can add in external instructors and they will receive an email. Kind of the only difference is the external instructors don't have access to it, so they're kind of viewing the notifications via email instead. Here we've got the individual session details, so capacity, cost, and this is where you're going to be able to create your email reminders. So you can change the parameters here, however many days before you want them to be reminded, and then days before a withdrawal notification. Here is where you can add the minimum capacity notification, as well as hours before they can actually withdraw from the session. So for example, if you've ever signed up for a course and you're kind of locked in and you paid for it, you're not going to get a refund if you canceled, let's say in this example, within the 4 hours before the event is due to start. You can also allow registrations for after the session time if you want. Tons of different parameters here. The most important ones would whether be you're marking attendance automatically or not. So what mark attendance automatically means is after 1 business days after the session has concluded, then users will automatically be marked attended if they registered for it. This is to kind of reduce the manual marking of attendance on the instructors. But if you want to turn this off and really make sure that somebody was attending and logged in for the entire session, you can totally do so. I will show you where to mark their attendance manually in a second. Really cool one that we get a lot of questions on, but I don't see a lot of users actually utilizing is understanding that we have a registration form enabled. So if you're signing up for a specific session and you want them to fill out a series of questions, maybe there are a couple of different questions that you may need. For example, what's your t-shirt size, or if are you allergic to any food? If it's a catered event in person, for example, you can turn on and create a registration form. This is where you're going to be able to ask for all of their information. And then you can also, if you already have a registration template, you can select that in as well. This one is really cool. It's actually new. I'm going to be covering it in next month's webinar for our Acorn in Action, but it's a show check-in QR code. So what this does is it allows learners to scan a QR code during the check-in window, and that's going to allow them to manually check in themselves. Very, very helpful if you're on field. This was an enhancement request that was requested by many of our manufacturing and often blue-collar learner industries. And so we're really excited to launch that as well. And then for these details, these are going to be details that are shown in the calendar invitation. And then, of course, we've got your restricted cohorts and then your session payment information here. So like I said, this was one for face-to-face. I wanted to show you that one because it had larger parameters. But for example, if you do a Microsoft Teams integration, I already created one at the beginning before this call, so I'll show you what that looks like. It's kind of the same. So I'll go ahead and I'll cancel out of that one. Now I'm going to turn off show past sessions because I want to show you what it looks like when you've actually created a session. So I created this one just before our webinar here just to show you what that looks like. This is what it's going to look like for a session that has not happened yet. We can see that it's a Microsoft Teams integration, and we've got the calendar attachment description here as well. And then we've got capacities. I didn't put any details, and then we've got statuses. So options for registering. Here is where you can go ahead and register your users. These items or these users are grayed out because they are already registered for an existing session within this event. Like I mentioned before, you can only register for one specific session. So if I close out of this one and I show all the past sessions here, these users were most likely registered for some of these past sessions, hence why their user name is grayed out. So just going back to this existing one. If you've got registered users, you can go ahead and say, I actually want to add these specific people to it. You can go ahead and confirm them there. And then if you want to withdraw users, so we've got some users, some test users here. If you want to withdraw them, you can go ahead and click confirm there. This is where I said we can have view and taking attendance. I will also show you this in a past session. But for example, you can see their attendance status. Right now, they're just registered, of course, because the event hasn't happened yet. If we had turned on automatic attendance, then like I said, a business day after this event has concluded or this session has concluded, they will automatically be marked as attended. However, you can say they were partially attended or they did not attend and then provide the notes here. The reason why it's currently grayed out is because, like I said, this is a future event, so it has not happened yet. I do want to cover email registrants. Again, we get this question quite a lot. And yes, the answer is we can email registrants based on their status. And this is where you can also follow up with users as well. If you've already concluded your session, you promised that you would be sending specific emails with specific attachments. So this is where you can customize specific emails specific to the session. And then you can schedule them and you can say, as a quick reminder, or I didn't tell you this, but we're going to be covering XYZ in this. So I want everybody to come prepared with XYZ. You can go ahead and send them an email before the event happens. And then again, you can also schedule it for after event happening as well. And then this is where you can edit the parameters. And so you can say, maybe I want to send an email to everybody who did not attend after the session, and I'm going to link them a copy of the recording. This is where I will send the email, and then I can drag and drop any attachments if necessary. All right, so just quickly taking a look at what you will see when a session has already passed. Go ahead and I'll filter it out here. We can see here the status and availability, session finished. So I'll go ahead and I'll click on that one. We can see here that this was restricted to users in accounting. And we can see all of the users who were registered, withdrawed, etc. And this is where I said you can view and take attendance. So wow, not a great turnout. Looks like there were 99 spots and only 2 people attended, but hey, at least they attended. And then the note here, you can see marked attended automatically based on that toggle that we turned on. However, if I said Alice she attended, but then she left halfway, I can mark her as partially attended, and then I can put in the notes here. Here is where I can save the attendance. I can also generate the sheet, export it, and also upload attendances if I need to. And then kind of the same gist for the automatic emails here as well. And I also want to show you session log. Oftentimes we get customer emails that says, this user is having issues. They told me that they signed up and they're not getting any email, XYZ. This is a really great habit to get into, which is taking a look at session logs, because you can kind of see when a user has actually clicked on it and they actually interacted with the event or not. Very similar to the session logs in the activities, you also have event session logs, the session logs that I just showed you with the specific event. We have the ones for activities as well. So for example, I can filter by user, event, and date, and I can actually take a look at all the users who took a look at this and whether or not they've completed the activity or not. So for example, I can see that myself here, I went in on the 25th at 11:48 a.m. and I completed the activity, which was the handout activity, which is this. So you can see very specifically and very thoroughly how somebody has interacted with your specific session, as well as the activities and the event entirely, by getting into the habit of taking a look at event logs. All right, something that I also do want to talk about is expression of interest. So when you are creating an event, kind of going backwards here, you are asked only a couple of questions, which is the event name, the event description, and expression of interest. So you can allow whether or not somebody can express, hey, I'm really interested in this event, but I'm actually not able to make any of the existing sessions that you currently have. So this can help you with your data to gauge whether or not something is really popular, whether you need to open up additional spots or look for additional instructors and facilitators for that specific event that you were hosting. And this is where you can turn on the notification expression of interest upon withdrawal. So let's say that they were no longer able to make the session, they have to withdraw from it, but they want to notify expression of interest. You can go ahead and do so there. And however many notifications the facilitator will get. So what that actually looks like, this specific event has the expression of interest turned on, which enables this little button here. So again, if none of the sessions are suitable, you can express interest and I can say, okay, I'm actually interested in this. Then I get a little notification. And then as soon as a new session opens up, I will be the first to know to be able to sign up for that. This is really helpful for gauging whether or not you're kind of gauging if you're introducing something into your organization, but you don't know if people are interested, or you have something, but it's very limited capacity, right? So maybe you don't have 99 capacity, but you've only got 10 capacity. This is where that will come in handy. And then to manage expression of interest, you can add, remove, you can email the users, and then you can view all the users who expressed interest in this as well. So you can kind of manage that from an admin level as well. And then, of course, we're big on reporting. So exporting event attendance and expression of interest, you can go ahead and click on that, and then you'll get a CSV download as well. Alrighty, as we kind of finalize a few of the items in live learning here, I do want to take a look at some of the items in the cogwheel. So something that many customers miss is they're so busy making sure that their event and their session is perfect that they forgot to tell the system what they actually need to attend in order to complete the course live learning and get a certification for it. So never forget to click on your completion criteria here and select the specific events that these users need to take. So of course, we've got the any and we've got the all. And it's very similar to a course where when you create a course, you add activities into it. You can go ahead and select what must be completed. For this one, it's only events. So another reason to break down your live learning into specific events and then nest sessions underneath. Oftentimes, we do get questions from users who only create a single event, like I previously mentioned, and then they nest a ton of different activities and a ton of different sessions underneath. Just break that up, and then you'll manage your completion criteria a lot easier from there. Other items on the cogwheel here is if you want to update the live learning. So that's what we previously saw when we were creating the shell. This is if you want to update the thumbnail or the description, etc. And also viewing live learning logs. So again, this is really helpful to take a look at how many people are actually logging in and they're just taking a look at it. Oftentimes we get facilitators who are managing multiple courses and sometimes activities get removed or sessions get removed and you want to see who did that. You can see the activity of all the items that were edited in regards to the live learning logs there. And then here is where you can assign a facilitator, assigning CPD points, and then the SCORM logs as well. So in this specific example, we don't have SCORM logs and SCORM tracking, but this is where you'll be able to see that. Alrighty, I'm going to take a quick pause there while I go ahead and manage some of our Q&A. Just going ahead and just stop sharing my screen here and just take a look at some of the items that we currently have. Thank you for making use of the Q&A. Like I mentioned, we are currently not managing our comments section. So this is where I will be able to address. Okie dokie. I've got a question here. Oh, can you please share the link for the Sprout Acorn page? Yes, I can absolutely do so. Let me actually go ahead and show you where that is. I will go back and just kind of reshare my screen here. All right, so if you go to acorn.works and you go to resources and go to events, there we are. These are all the events that we have, and you'll be able to see all of our Sprout webinars. So for example, we've got our next one here, which is the January to March roadmap, and this is where you'll be able to sign up for it. So super easy website. It's just acorn.works/event, and then you'll be able to see all the webinars upcoming. All right. Next one here. How is automatic attendance tracked? Does it only trigger attendance once they join the session? Would someone who left halfway through an MS Teams training session would be marked attended? Great question. So automatic attendance is basically everybody who has registered. It will automatically mark them as attended once they join the webinar session or once they join the live learning session. So it does not flag somebody who's left halfway. If they left halfway, they will still be marked attended. And that's why I basically say you can turn on the track automatic attendance or not, or you can choose to do the attendance manually, because then you can mark somebody as partially attended and provide the notes there. But no, the session does not track, it was an hour session, they only attended for 30 and automatically pop them to the partially attended. It will just mark them as attended if they joined. Wow, we've got a lot of questions here. I'm going to try to blast through them as much as I can, but if not, I'll definitely get someone to follow up with you. So where is the QR code going so that they can check in? That's a great question. I will get you a screenshot of that. My understanding here, I don't want to spread misinformation, but it's at the very beginning of the event, they get a QR code and they can go ahead and scan that. But I will follow up with you and provide you actual screenshots and a video of what that would look like. If users register for a session and doesn't attend, are they able to register for another session? Yes, just mark them as not attended. How do you use a template email in here, or do we need to type from scratch every time? So templates are not available. Unfortunately, you do need to type from scratch every time. What if somebody wants to attend a live learning again, but their name is grayed out? Great question. So what this does not enable is, for example, if you've got one event and you've got two sessions, they attended the first session and they loved it so much they want to attend a second one. Unfortunately, that's not possible. You will either have to create two different events with the same session. So two different events and then the session underneath, then they will be able to register for the individual session that they have not already registered in the event. How do you create the handout activity? Oh, that's a great question. I'll go ahead and actually share my screen for this one here. Where is my, oh, yes. So I previously showed this example here, which is a handout activity. It's just labeled handout, but all it is it's just a resource. So if I start editing here, and then I click this is just a resource that we called handout, and it's just a PDF that we drag and dropped in. And so basically the reason that you kind of see this is if we go to create activity, click on resource, handout, so we called it as an example, drag and drop your file in, and then that's how you create the activity. If you want to see what that looks like in real time, I believe it's just a blank PDF, but we shall see. There you go. It's a walkthrough of our implementation deck. Once you click on it, they get marked as completed. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Other questions here is, how do I delete a live learning or a session? Yeah, that's a really good example. I'll spend the next couple minutes focusing on this one. So it is very interesting how you can delete a session because live learning and attendance, it holds so much data. We don't make it really easy for you to delete a session or a live learning. The only way you're going to be able to delete a session, first you have to delete the session, then delete the event, then delete the live learning. So the only way you're able to remove it is if you did not have anybody register or sign up for that session. Is the only way you're going to be able to delete it by clicking on this garbage can here. And then only once all of these sessions, so if I'm using this one as a specific example, I have to delete every single session here in order to then delete the actual event, which is clicking on this garbage can here. And then once the events are deleted, then I can go in, and once I click on the cogwheel, there would be a delete live learning button that shows up here. It's not even available for me, even as an admin, because as you can see in this example, multiple people have signed up to the multiple sessions that we currently have. In that case, you'll have to reach out to support to get the data deleted. So we're just really protecting your data here and really making sure that all of your learners get the credit that they deserve if they took the time to attend a session and an event. All right. Forgive me, I'm not able to address all of the questions here, but I do have a copy as well as everybody who asked for the question. And we will follow up with you. Our customer success team will follow up with you, and they will give you an in-depth answer on that one. But that concludes our webinar for Best Practices Live Learning Playbook today. Remember, for March, we're going to have an entire capabilities one, so please go ahead and sign up for that one. And then I will catch you at the next webinar, which is going over our March roadmap. Thank you so much, everyone.